Okay, so to do the factor level method of conversion, what you always do is you always look at the question and you first write down the value you've been given. Don't even let yourself think. Just write down 217, and you have to write down the centimeters part. Now, again, I don't let myself think. What I say is I don't want centimeters, so what I'm going to do is I am going to multiply, draw a line for a fraction, and I'm going to take the centimeters, which is right here, and put it down here. I'm not going to take the number, just the centimeters, and bring it down here. Centimeters. Now I have to stop and think. So now what I do is I look up here and say, well, I'm trying to get to feet. What is it I can turn centimeters into? Well, let's see here. I could turn centimeters into inches, or I could turn centimeters into meters. Centimeters into inches makes more sense if I'm trying to get to feet. So I'm going to go ahead and put inches up above. Now look here, and I see 1 inch equals 2.54 centimeters. So I put 2.54 with the centimeters. Now what happens is the centimeters are gone now, and what I want to do now is go ahead, and I have inches on top. I don't want inches, I want feet. So now what I do is I have to get rid of inches, and the way you get rid of inches is the way you got rid of centimeters. You multiply, draw a line for fractions, take the inches from here and move them into the basement. So I'll put inches here, and then what I do is I look up here to see what I can turn them into, and it looks like I could turn inches into feet, which is what I need. So I'll put feet up above. I go back and consult this. I see 1 foot equals 12 inches, so I say 1 foot equals 12 inches. And now, since the inches are gone, I have what I want on top. So at this point, I say equals. And now what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to multiply this number. I'm going to multiply it by this number. I'm going to divide it by this number. I'm going to multiply it by this number and divide it by this number. So it goes this number times the top divided by the bottom times the top divided by the bottom equals. And when I do that, in this case, what I get is 7.1194225 blah blah blah. Well, I look at my original value. It has 3 significant figures, so I'm going to round this to 3 significant figures. I'm going to keep the 7, the 1, and the 1. Since this is a 9, I'll round this one up to a 2, and I'll record my answer as 7.12 feet. So let's go on to the next one. Now I'm going to write down what I've been given, 7.426 inches. I'm not going to think. I'm going to multiply, draw a fraction, and put inches in the basement. At this point, I say, okay, I want to get rid of inches. I want to get to millimeters. What does it make sense to turn my inches into? I think it makes sense to turn them into centimeters. So I'll put centimeters up above, and that means 1 centimeter equals 2.54 centimeters. I got that value by looking up here. Now what happens is I have inches have gone away. I have centimeters up above. I don't want centimeters, I want millimeters, so I'm going to put centimeters down below. Now again, I'm going to shop to see what I can turn centimeters into. I can turn centimeters into meters, not to millimeters, so it looks like I'm going to have to turn them into meters. Even though that seems counterintuitive, that's what I'm going to do. And when I look up there, I see that 1 meter equals 100 centimeters. Now, centimeters are gone, and I've got meters. I don't want meters, and when I don't want something, I multiply, draw a fraction, put it in the basement, and if I look up here, it looks like I can turn meters into millimeters. 1 meter equals 1,000 millimeters. And now that I got what I want up above, I say equals, and I multiply through. So what I'm going to find is I get 1,88620, 1,88620.4. Now, how many significant figures do I get? I get 4 significant figures, so I'm going to round this to 4 significant figures. I keep the 1, the 8, and the 6. Since the 2 is less than 5, I'm going to leave the 6 alone and fill in with place-holding zeros. And I'm going to get 1,88600. Let's keep going. I'm going to look at number 3 now. I'm going to write down the 18 pints, and I don't want pints, so I'm going to multiply and put them in the basement. And what can I turn pints into? I'm trying to get to liters. So let's find pints. The only thing I can turn pints into quarts. I believe that's all I can turn them into. So I'm going to have to put quarts up above. And what I see is that 2 pints equals 1 quart. I don't want quarts, so I multiply, and I'm going to put quarts in the basement. And if I look up here, I see I could turn quarts into gallons. So it looks like I'm going to have to put gallons up above. And what I see is 1 gallon equals 4 quarts. Now I don't want gallons, so I multiply and I put gallons in the basement. What could I turn gallons into? Well, lo and behold, I can turn gallons into liters, and that's what I want, is liters. So I'm going to put liters up above, gallons down below, and if I look up here, I see 1 gallon equals 3.78 liters. 1 gallon equals 3.78 liters. Now that I've got liters on top, which is what I want, I'm going to say equals, and now I'm going to multiply 18 times 1 divided by 2 times 1 divided by 4 times 3.78 divided by 1 equals. And when I enter that into my calculator, what I get is 8.505. And I look at my original value. I have 2 significant figures, so that means I keep the 8, I keep the 5. Since this is 4 or less, I leave the 5 alone, and I'll record my answer as 8.5 liters. Alright, let's move ourselves up here. Alright, let's start number 4 then. So, I always start off with what I have, 3.84 times 10 to the 6th grams. I don't want grams, so I'm going to put grams in the basement. I'm trying to get to pounds, so let's just see what I have to go with. Let's see, if I'm going to turn grams, what can I turn grams into? It looks to me like I can turn grams into kilograms right here. So, it looks like what I have is 1,000 grams equals 1 kilogram. Now I don't want kilograms, so I'm going to multiply by a fraction and put kilograms in the basement. And then I'm going to say, can I turn kilograms into pounds? And when I look up above, I see, yes, I can. What I find is that 1 kilogram equals 2.2 pounds. Once I get what I want up above, I say equals, multiply it through, and I'm just going to go ahead and round it for sniff. Well, no, I'm not. Here you go. What I get is 8,448. I need to round it to 3 significant figures, so I'm going to go ahead and make that. I keep the 8. I keep the 4, I round the other 4 to a 5, and I add a placeholding 0, and that's in pounds. Let's try number 5. Don't let yourself think, just write 304 inches cubed. I don't want cubic inches, so I'm going to put inches cubed in the basement. And when I look up above there, there's only one thing I can turn cubic inches into. I can turn them into gallons, and what I find is 1 gallon equals 231 of these bad boys. I don't want gallons, so they have to go where? The basement. Now that I got gallons in the basement, I'm trying to get to liters, and you know what? I can turn them into liters. It turns out 1 gallon equals 3.78 liters. I'm going to say equals. Now I'm simply going to say this number times the top divided by the bottom times the top divided by the bottom. Sounds like school's out now. Equals. Let's see what I get. Looks like I get 4.9745 repeating. Now, how many of these do I get to keep? Well, the answer is 3. That means I'm going to keep the 4, the 9, the 7. Since this is 4 or less, I leave the 7 as 7. So my answer is going to be 4.97 liters. Okay, let's do the next one now. I got, whoops, what just happened there? I got 2.2 times 10 to the minus 8 miles, and I don't want miles, so I put them in the basement. What can I turn miles into? The only thing I turn them into is feet. And what I find then is 1 mile, of course, equals 5,280 feet. What else would it equal? I don't want feet, so I put them in the basement. I can't turn feet into meters, at least not with the conversion factors I gave you, so you're going to have to turn them into inches, unfortunately. One of these equals 12 inches. I don't want inches, so I'm going to put them in the basement. And now I can turn inches into centimeters, which is good. And what I'm going to find is 1 inch equals 2.54 centimeters. But I don't want centimeters, so I'm going to put them in the basement. I'm going to turn those into meters. And when I look up above, what I'll see is 100 of these. 100 centimeters equals 1 meter. I'll say equal. In this case, I'm just going to go ahead and round it to two significant figures because I don't have room. So the answer is going to be 3.5 times 10 to the negative 5 meters. Now it's going to get a little bit tricky. So for number 7, you know what? I think I need more room. So let's do this and this. Alright, here we go now. Alright, so here's what I got to do. I want to start off by saying what I was told is one sheet of paper is this many millimeters thick. That's a conversion factor. So basically my conversion factor is one sheet equals 0.11 millimeters. That's a conversion factor. You never start with a conversion factor. You start with a measurement. Here's my measurement. So I'm going to start off by saying 77492 sheets. And then I'm going to convert sheets into feet. So I don't want sheets. I'm going to put sheets down below. And I'm going to turn sheets, according to this conversion factor right here, into millimeters. And I'm going to say 0.11 of these equals one of those. Now, I don't want millimeters, so I put them in the basement. I can turn millimeters into meters. One of these is 1,000 of those. I don't want meters, I want feet, so I'm going to put meters down below. This is crazy, when I have to turn them into centimeters. One of these equals 100 of these. And I don't want centimeters, so I'm going to put centimeters in the basement. And I'm going to turn them into inches. 2.54 centimeters equals 1 inch. I don't want inches, so I'm going to put inches in the basement. And I'm going to turn inches into feet. And I see that 1 inch equals 12 feet, so I'll say equals. Good golly, if you notice, the sheets canceled, the millimeters canceled, the meters canceled, the centimeters canceled, the inches canceled, and I'm left with feet. So when I calculate, what I end up getting is, in this case, I get 96627 feet. But how many significant figures am I going to limit myself to? Well, it turns out that this is kind of interesting. This is a counted value, and there's usually no uncertainty there, so that doesn't limit my precision. But this was measured. That's 2 significant figures, so I had to round this answer to 2 significant figures. I keep the 2, I keep the 7. This 9 says round this to an 8, so my answer is going to be 28 feet. Well, this last one is the last one for a reason. It takes a little bit of work to do it, so let's just read what we're supposed to do here. Alright, so what we want to try to do is we want to figure out how many drops. So we're trying to convert into drops. So we want to know how many it takes to fill the sink. So what we need to do is we need to start off with the volume of the sink and convert it into drops. So let's just see, let's take an assessment of what we know. Okay, so what we've got here is this. We know that the sink is 24 inches by 17 inches by 8.5 inches. So when we multiply that, we're going to find this sink has a volume of 3,468 inches. Now, you might think, well, shouldn't we go ahead and make this to round this to 2 significant figures? The answer is we don't do that until we're all the way done. Otherwise, we end up with what are called rounding artifacts. So I'm just going to leave it with 4 significant figures till now. When I get to the very end of the process, then I'm going to go back and round for significant figures. So let's see what else I know. I know that 178 drops of water equals 5.9 milliliters. So that's a conversion factor I've got. 178 drops equals 5.9 milliliters. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start off with the volume of the sink, and I'm going to convert it into drops. So I have to get it ready for this conversion factor, which means I've got to get it into milliliters. So I've got to convert cubic inches, which I didn't write the cubic part, let me do that. I've got to convert cubic inches into milliliters. Let's get going here. I'm going to start off with what I know. 3,468 cubic inches. I don't want cubic inches. I put them in the basement. I don't want to put an M there. Cubic inches. That's even worse. Okay, and the one thing I can turn cubic inches into, I believe, is gallons. And I believe the conversion I have is 1 gallon equals 231 cubic inches. Now I've got gallons. I don't want gallons, so I'm going to put gallons down below. Now what can I turn gallons into? I can turn gallons into liters. So I'll put liters up above. 1 gallon equals, what is it, 3.78 liters. But I don't want liters, so I put liters in the basement. I can definitely turn liters into milliliters. The deal is one of these liters equals 1,000 of these milliliters. Now I'm going to come around and use my conversion factor. I can turn milliliters into drops, and I'll have my answer. So I put milliliters in the basement. I put drops up above, and the conversion factor I have is 5.9 milliliters equals 178 drops. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to multiply the tops and divide by the bottoms, and when I do that, what I come up with is 1,712,091.217. Now, how many of those numbers do I get to keep? Well, let's just look. My weakest link, I have 2 significant figures in this measurement, 2 in this measurement, 2 in this measurement. My conversion factor involves a counted value, which does not affect my precision, but a measured value that does. So I have to limit myself to 2 significant figures. That means I get to keep the 1, I get to keep the 7, and I'm going to leave the 7 alone because this number is 4 or less. So I'm going to write my answer as 1,700,000. I'm going to fill in with placeholding zeros, and that is drops.